Hi, this is Jim Cunningham. We're going to talk about the legal and financial planning issues that come up after a California wildfire. Now, the title here is California wildfires, plural, because we seem to have more and more of them. I remember the first vivid memory of a California wildfire was in Ojai in 1984 that really kind of wiped out all the mountains above Ojai. And still, 40 years later, is just now kind of getting as green as it was 40 years ago. So I'm Jim Cunningham. I am an attorney at Cunningham Legal. I'm a partner. I've been an attorney for 30 years. We have offices throughout California, including Pasadena and Westlake Village, so kind of areas where we have had the recent fires. I'm a certified specialist in estate planning, trust, and probate law, a securities licensed and a licensed real estate broker, as well as insurance licensed, and a pilot single engine land. I did my primary training out of the Camarillo Airport. So these are the lawyers in our firm. We're all dedicated to all things for the peaceful transfer of wealth, the preservation of wealth that you've created and that you want to preserve and pass on to the next generation with minimal taxes and minimal expenses. This is a disclaimer. This is very important. We are going to be covering a very small slice of all the things if you're in the unfortunate position of having a home damaged by a fire or destroyed by a fire, or not destroyed and not damaged, but in a fire area. It's very important to pay attention to a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about. This is not an exhaustive list. There are a lot of people out there who are really trying to help you, a lot of scammers out there. We're just trying to help people and walk them through some best practices and what to do and to sort of rebuild your life. So what we're talking about here lately is the Eaton and Palisades fire and really the devastation that has happened. This has been well covered in the news. Frankly, if you lived through it, you probably don't want to see these pictures. I get it. We're kind of calculating the damage at about 30 billion, which is absolutely catastrophic. This is essentially just the property damage. This doesn't even begin to get into all the other economic damage, and we'll cover that when we talk about insurance coverage. 11,000 plus homes and businesses destroyed. In talking with people in Northern California versus Southern California, we went through this with the Paradise Fire, the Napa Fire, Santa Rosa. Those were kind of like forest fires, not really urban fires. And I was, while the fires were still going on, we were trying to move our office internally in our Pasadena office from one floor to another. Our office was closed for that week. Our entire staff was affected in the Pasadena office in terms of evacuation. But we were down there, and I saw it firsthand, just the really the utter devastation, and it's very hard to comprehend for those people who have experienced it in Northern California. I think it's the scale that really is frankly shocking, and this, of course, is the fire area, the smoke and the locations, the acres burned. So pretty big deal. Let's talk about the impact on businesses and homeowners in particular. So this has lasting impacts on your life, right? And it's years. We're now talking to clients. We have offices in Northern California. They are just now rebuilding from the Paradise Fire. They are just now rebuilding from the Napa Fire, and that's 7 years ago. So it's a very long time, very long lead time. And I think you need to ask yourself if you've been affected by this. And what I mean by affected is this may be your business that's affected. You might be cleaning pools, and your neighborhood got wiped out. And the question is, do you want to rebuild that or not? There are a lot of other economic impacts that happen to people, and people need to make a choice. Are they going to stay and rebuild, or are they just going to kind of pack up and move to a different location, or move to an adjacent place? Obviously, very personal decision. We're talking about property damage and destruction, property damage tax consequences. It's very important. Expenses to resume operations. You're going to have that, and your life in general. You think about the people. I don't know. It's like 40% of the people can't afford a $400 expenditure. A lot of those people were affected, and when you lose every single thing except the clothes on your back, boy, it's even to rebuild and live in a one-bedroom apartment. That's a significant economic hit to many people. The businesses have direct damage. Obviously, if your business is physically damaged, road closures and evacuations. So, if you've been living through this as a business owner, you know what I'm talking about. And then and supply chain disruptions, a whole bunch of stuff. Handling property damage after fire. So what are we talking about? So obviously, if your property is damaged but not destroyed, or undamaged, right? But you're you can't go back, or they let you go back for a little bit of time, you're going to want to remove your valuables. Looting is going to be an issue for a long time to come. Some of these places that where properties did not burn, you realistically may not have access to that, so you might not even be able to live there because it's a hazardous. And we've seen that on the news coverage with the toxic materials that have burned, and it's in the feet of soil that's going to have to be cleaned up. And it looks like the Army Corps of Engineers is going to be involved in that. Very, very long time. They're talking about not releasing any sort of report until all of the damage is cleaned up, which we can agree or disagree on that, but this is at least what where we're at today, and this is in February of 2025. File all claims with your insurance. It's very important that you timely file your claims. Now, if you say, "Gee, I don't even have my insurance papers. I don't know who to call," it can be tough. So this is sort of one best practice if you are a homeowner or not, or if you're an insured person, you want to make sure that you have the documentation, the person, maybe it's your insurance broker's phone information and contact information in your cell phone, right? Because you can pull that down on iCloud. If you lose your phone or it's destroyed, you can get another phone typically and have that downloaded off the cloud. But definitely want to reach out and get your claims filed, because there is a time limitation on these claims, right? Just don't sit around. Some items require riders or separate policies. Literally, like there's a policy and a rider, like someone riding on the back of a horse. That's where the term comes from. So it's an extra bit of insurance that rides along with your insurance policy. So you might have a homeowner's policy or a renter's policy, but many times jewelry, fine art, collectibles, this is like maybe paintings or rare books or maps. Firearms oftentimes are separately insured, and many of our clients collect firearms. These can be very, very valuable collections in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. Musical instruments, again, they can be very valuable. Wine and spirits collections, the wine collection, and just think about how many wine collections got cooked. And you might think, Jim, well, that's, these people have lost their homes, it's utter devastation. And, you may have a wine collection that is very valuable. Antiques is another one, heirlooms, luxury clothing, including handbags and shoes. I was talking to somebody who was a buyer for one of the well-known retail resellers of designer clothing, and a woman in her 80s had a big collection of clothing. This woman got $1 million from all of the purses and shoes and bags and other clothing. So, think about that. If you're a person who has a lot of designer clothing, you may have designer clothing and jewelry that can be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more. Home business property. So if you have, you might store inventory at property that's typically not covered by your homeowner's insurance policy. So you do want to have a separate policy there. Watercraft stored at home. So if you have that boat at home or the jet ski, obviously those have separate insurance policies. Rugs and medical equipment. So these are just kind of an example of things that might require a rider. So if you think, gee, well, I had that jet ski in my driveway, but I wasn't using it, so it was not insured. That may not be covered by your homeowner's insurance, right? That may require a separate policy. Contact your landlord or mortgage lender. That's very, very important. Contacting your mortgage lender, you still have to pay your mortgage, right? So your home is destroyed, you still have to pay property taxes. We'll cover property taxes in a bit. And then contact your credit card company to report lost or stolen credit cards. Many people do not carry all their credit cards with them. So when you evacuate your house, you may have those instruments, those credit card companies or credit cards in your house, and they're destroyed, but you need to let your credit card company know. So these are some important documents to recover. So I would say this is if you've lost your home, or if you have limited access to your home, right? You're going to want to get these papers. So driver's license, very important. Most people are going to carry that with them, but if you've been evacuated in the middle of the night, you may not even have your driver's license. So go down to the DMV, get a driver's license. You now have to have two forms of ID to get a real ID. And I believe in May of 2025, you're not going to be able to fly commercially without a real ID or a passport. So that's like a California driver's license with that sort of extra extra background check, if you will, just a extra verification that you're you. Auto registration, very important. Automobile registration, pink slips, if you've got those. If you don't have those, you can have those reissued from the DMV. Titles and deeds, it's very important. California, we look at not just the deed that someone might walk around with. So you see these old West movies where someone's going to bet and then they put the deed in and that's their bet and then they lose and then someone else wins the ranch from the deed. That that may or may not be an effective transfer of property, but it's not like if you hold the deed, you own the property. That is in your name. And so that's something that you can get from the recorder's office, or certainly if you've done an estate plan with our firm, that's something that we have on our records. And I'll talk a little bit more about estate planning and estate planning documents. Insurance policies, you're going to want to get those. This is very important. If you have served in the United States military and you've been discharged, you have what is called the DD 214. Those are your discharge papers. Very important to have those. And the VA is going to require you to have the paper copy. So it's very important to have that document, and that's something that's very difficult to get once you've lost it. So even if it's a photocopy, it's good, but obviously the original is going to be better. So there are a lot of veterans benefits that you might be eligible for as you as you go through life, and you want to make sure and locate those. If you have a loved one, maybe it's a parent, and that parent served in the armed forces of the United States, they're going to have a DD 214. Passports, obviously very important. Birth, death, and marriage certificates. These are sort of the basic things that you need to get a passport, to get a real ID, to live in our society. You need these things. Divorce papers. Again, another one. Now, some of these may be on file with the court, but many courts, after a period of time, whether it's 10 years or 20 years, destroy the court files. And so if you need to resolve property ownership issues that are related to your divorce, you may need to prove that you're in fact divorced. It's very important to have that final decree dissolving the marriage, as well as any property settlement agreements or any judicial orders. Typically, you're going to want the court orders is what we're talking about. Replacing money, I mean, if you have cash, Social Security or Medicare cards, you're going to want to get those. Obviously, credit cards, stocks and bonds. If you're one of like the 5 people in the world that still has a paper certificate, and I mean, there are more than 5 people, but this is where you would get a stock. And you might have seen these, I don't know, you might see them in an art gallery or a historical kind of store. It is literally a piece of paper that is a share of stock. If you lose that share, if you can't find it, there is a 3% charge to get a new share. So let me say that another way. If your stock shares burned up in the fire and you have $1 million stock certificate, you're going to have to pay $30,000 to get that certificate. Okay. There's a 3% insurance premium. This prevents fraud. And that's just how it is. Right. So what most people do is they take these stocks, they either put them in a safe deposit box, although the bank can burn down. Right. Good luck finding a bank that has a safe deposit box. What most people do is they take these certificates and they open up what's called a street account with a financial advisor. Those shares go to the financial advisor, and then those are kind of held in trust, if you will. They're really held for you rather than those shares being physical shares. So I would say there's a risk there by having physical shares. Medical records, very important. A lot of this is electronic now, but still you may have legacy paper records that are very, very important. Warranties, it's, if you have warranty items. Income tax records, another important one. So you want to make sure and have those. And citizenship and immigration papers. And by the way, if you are a green card holder and not a U.S. citizen and your life is here in the United States, I would strongly urge you to consider becoming a citizen. We've seen with the change in administration, what I'm hearing out there in the legal world is people who have a green card, if you commit a crime, depending on the crime, and maybe it just may be any crime, that may be stripped from you and you could be subject to deportation. Your naturalization can be stripped if it's fraud, but you're much better off being a citizen, in my view, broadly speaking, if you want to stay in the United States, than being a green card holder. So if that's something you've been waiting on, and frankly, many of our clients had grown up here, they just weren't born here, and they maybe were never naturalized, but they're a green card holder. So I've always been a proponent for the 30 years I've been in practice. If your life is in the United States, it's better to be a citizen. Now, let's talk about duplicate original titles to For documents. So many of our clients have, so let me back up. In our firm, we help people set up living trusts, and people will do a will and a durable power of attorney for property and an advanced healthcare directive. And there might be some deeds and some LLC documents, other assignments. So this may be your estate plan. It might be 100 pages, it might be 200 pages, it might be 300 pages, but it's typically a stack of papers. And we put that in a binder. And so the binder is there to help you stay organized, right? So this is what I mean by estate planning documents, your living trust, powers of attorney. Many people, and we've had this in the past in Napa and Santa Rosa and Camarillo and the other fires in LA, people's records have been destroyed. And so what we do in our firm is we, at no charge to our clients, like this is the least we can do to help you going through a very difficult time, is for people who are clients of our firm, we have a document where we can sign and have a statement that these documents are valid legal documents and they were destroyed in a fire. And so I'm certifying as the attorney, as the person who wrote these documents, that these documents are the documents. And what the form we have, if you're watching the video here, is this is the grantor saying it. Now the lawyer can, so if the grantor can't sign, maybe the grantor, meaning the person who created the trust, if that person's dead, the attorney can do this. But typically what we do is we have the grantors sign it saying, listen, these documents were destroyed in this fire, these are the documents that were destroyed, and now this is essentially a duplicate original. So we have that form. If you're a lawyer watching this, and we get a lot of lawyers watching this, I'm happy to share this with you. You can reach out to us at team@CunninghamLegal.com, and we'll email you that form. So if you're a client of Cunningham Legal, we'll do this at no charge. If you have a photocopy of your documents, those aren't originals. Okay, so you would want to go back to your attorney who wrote the documents and have your attorney do this. Certainly, if you're a client of ours, we can go ahead and do that for you, and that gets you your duplicate original. So very, very important to recreate those documents. That's a little different from now. It may be that you say, "Gee, wow, I did that estate plan 10 years ago, and so much has changed. I need to update my documents anyway." We go ahead, we can help you with that as well, right? But what I'm saying is, for somebody who says, look, I just need to get my life back together. Maybe I signed my documents 3 years ago. I just need them. And by the way, you're going to need these to make an insurance claim. Okay. So this is not something that's just, oh, you might need it when you die. They're going to be asking, for most people, their house is in their living trust. So the insurance company is going to want these. Speaking of insurance, let's talk about homeowner insurance policies and what's going on here. So the homeowner insurance policy can cover a lot. It can cover a little. It can cover the contents and valuable articles. This is your personal property. There are things that it probably doesn't cover. Motor vehicles, typically covered by your your auto policy, right? Loss of use and additional living expenses. Some homeowner policies provide that if your home is destroyed, that the insurance company will pay you rent, which is really the loss of use of your home, for the time that your home's being rebuilt or for a period of time. Now, here's why the insurance company does this. If you have a home that has a mortgage, you still have to pay that mortgage. Your home is destroyed. You made your claim. You still have to pay your property taxes. You still have to pay your mortgage. Now, I know that some lenders are working with borrowers and they're saying, well, we will abate the payments, meaning we'll stop the payments, but that doesn't mean you don't owe the money. They're just not giving money away. That gets typically put on to the balance of the loan, and you're going to pay is the bottom line. Fair rental value, they can give you fair rental value. They can just have some imputed value. It can be a high number. It can be a low number. It's whatever your policy says. The forced evacuation expenses, what expenses did you incur through evacuation? And then miscellaneous debris removal. Code upgrades, that is hotly debated right now, is a lot of the homes that were destroyed, are 100 years old. I don't even think there were building codes maybe there were building codes in 1925. I think that's when they came out. But there used to not even be building codes, right? And so the concern is, we want, should we make these homeowners, when they rebuild, bring everything up to current code? And I know that's hotly debated at the moment. and then the dwelling coverage or the rebuilding costs. Now, I will tell you that whatever number you have in mind to build or rebuild your home, or repair it if it was damaged, the number is probably too low. So I went through this. We rehabilitated a structure in 2020, but personally, my wife and I did, and again in 2023. And I was shocked in 2020 how expensive everything had gotten because my wife and I do this about every 5 years. I was shocked how expensive it was. And in 2023, not only was shocked, what's beyond shocked? I don't know, mortified, catatonic, I don't know, whatever it is. And it's just prices keep going up, labor keeps going up. So a lot of people were in a pickle in the Paradise Fire where they lost their home, and the amount of money they got for the dwelling coverage, which is a rebuilding cost, didn't even come close to rebuilding the home. So really take a close look at that. And this probably goes into the sort of thought is, do I rebuild? Do I not rebuild? I got to tell you, again, a highly personal decision. If you have a lot of money and you have 3 or 4 homes, rebuilding, if you have someone managing the process, you could do it, you could not do it. Some people just don't have the means to do it. And maybe they can't stay living in California, right? So, and some people weren't insured because they were canceled. So there's a lot going on there. And this is something that really you don't have to make an immediate decision because nothing's happening particularly fast. But it is a decision. There's going to be a fork in the road. Do you go down the path of rebuilding, or do you sell and do something else? So for businesses, we have commercial property insurance, which is physical damage to the premises. These might be tenant improvements. They could be certainly if you have a medical office or a dental office or some other scientific application, those tend to be significantly higher tenant improvements. The business interruption insurance, loss of earnings. So if your business is closed and your business is heavily dependent on that physical location, your losses are going to be higher. If your business is a law firm and you're all digital, your damage is less than if you're a dental office because you have to build the infrastructure in order to serve patients. So it really depends on the type of business. Your contingent business interruption, this is supplier or customer disruptions, extra expenses, mitigating losses, service interruption, utility outages, ingress access restrictions. You can't get into your business to do what you need to do. And then supply chain insurance. This would be like for broader supply chain disruptions. But given that these fires are localized, probably wouldn't see too much of that. But these are different types of coverage for business. So if you escape this one, but you're thinking, gee, you have a business in an area that's fire prone, you really need to get an education on this, and you really should talk to your insurance broker who can walk you through this. So insurance policies and trusts, this is very important. You must notify your insurance carrier when ownership changes. Now, when there's a change in ownership, under California law, when we talk change in ownership, that means the property is getting reassessed. Transfers between spouses are not changes in ownership. Transfers, if you take a property from that's in your name and you put it into the name of an LLC and you own the shares of the LLC, that is not supposed to be a change in ownership. Although I did hear that LA County is 3 years behind. They just reassess you, and they're 3 years behind. So tread carefully on that one. But you do have to notify your homeowner's insurance policy or your property policy when you retitle. So if it's going into a living trust, you need to have your living trust added as an additional insured. If it goes into an LLC, you should check with your insurance carrier before you put the property into an LLC. Now, I'm not talking your personal use assets, your home, your vacation home. In our law firm, we really think those should not be going into an LLC because it's not a business. It's a personal use asset. So if you're talking rental property, let's say you have a fourplex, you put that into an LLC. Before you put that into the LLC, you need to check with the insurance carrier that they're not going to drop you, okay? So what some people do, some people put 99% in the LLC, then keep 1%, or they do. That's really not helping you on the asset protection. It still leaves a little bit of a problem for the asset protection, but this getting canceled is a real issue. And certainly that applies to partnerships as well. So if you don't notify your insurance company, and typically you notify them, they put the trust or the partnership or the LLC as an additional insured, they may deny your coverage. So it's very important to take this very seriously and what you need to do when you put a property into your living trust or an LLC or a partnership, you absolutely have to notify your insurance carrier. Ideally, contact them in advance, but once you do it, then notify them so they can appropriately document the file, because insurance companies are always looking for ways not to pay claims. I mean, that's why personal injury attorneys, that's why you see so many ads, right? People get injured, the insurance company doesn't want to pay, so people go out and hire a lawyer. Sometimes trusts don't include a person's name. So sometimes people say, well, I want to do this trust, but I don't want to use my name. I want to use some other thing so I can, have more privacy. And the insurance company doesn't know who the trust belongs to. And I will tell you, insurance companies, broadly speaking, they tolerate LLCs. They really don't like trusts because they don't know what's going on in a trust. A trust is just a black box. You don't know what's going on in there. There's all sorts of things you can do in a trust that really you can't do with an LLC. An LLC has members. It's got, that's kind of it. But with a trust, you can have a lot of other stuff going on in there. Now, you can file an appeal with the insurance company. You can, with supporting documentation. But if they deny you, you do want to contact a lawyer. We are helping some people. And again, there are a lot of different subspecialties. But if someone's getting resistance from an insurance carrier and needs help, that's something where we can help you. If someone's suing for a bad faith denial, that's typically the purview of like the personal injury attorneys or the bad faith attorneys. That's not us, but we're helping people just get it together to work with the insurance company to see if we can get your claim covered. So that's something we can help with. So the question is, do you rebuild or do you buy? Will you rebuild? If your home has been destroyed, do you want to spend that 7 years? That 10 years, that 3 years? I don't know how long it's going to take. Do you want that headspace? Or do you take the insurance money? Do you sell the lot and buy another home? If your home was destroyed, does that mean you're going to be a renter? There's a lot to consider. And again, this is not something you have to do right away. I would watch out for scammers. There are a lot of people who are going to be out there looking to pick up stuff for cheap. They're always out there. So you need to really pay attention to that. But these are real issues. Do you want to rebuild? I mean, I personally, at my age, I don't know. And my wife said hard no, she wouldn't do it. So we're in our mid 50s and she's just, wouldn't do it. So if you're rebuilding, it may not make sense to pay off the mortgage with the insurance payment, right? Because it'll be necessary to obtain a construction loan at a higher interest rate. So if think about this, you bought this home and maybe your interest rate's 2.75% and now it's 6.75%. You go, gee, I'd really like to hold on to that. So I'm going to take the insurance money and use that rather than paying off the mortgage, because you need money to pay to build the home. I'm assuming you have a mortgage. It may make more sense to keep that mortgage, keep making that payment, and use those funds to rebuild the house. Some policies only pay the depreciated cash value of the property. So if the structures aren't rebuilt, right? So if you don't rebuild, and this is why you really, before you decide to sell or before you just sell, then go to your insurance company, you need to go to the insurance company first. You need to go to your insurance agent first, find out what your coverage is. So if you don't rebuild the structure, they give you the depreciated value. And that's the value of the structure, not the land. And that land remains yours. Now, some of these lots are going to vary in price. Obviously, it depends on the location and the size. But again, this is something before you decide to sell, you need to check with your insurance company because you might not get as much money. So it's very important. Building a house takes time. Planning, designing, permits, construction. Building a home in California, not in a fire area, right? Not in a wildfire area, takes 10 to 18 months. They're saying they may not have stuff cleared for a couple of years. So the environmental cleanup. So now that's pushing it out 4 years at the earliest. So very long time. And if that's not something you want to do for the next 4 years, that's a decision you're going to need to make. But again, you're going to want to check with the insurance company first. And it might be too hard to rebuild at any age, right? And then you're living in a place that is potentially susceptible to fire. Is it the same place? I went to undergrad at UC Santa Cruz, and I happened to be studying abroad when the Loma Prieta earthquake hit. Totally changed the downtown vibe of Santa Cruz, the Pacific Garden Mall, which was a street in Santa Cruz, and it really never was the same. I don't know that these places are going to be the same. I happen to live in an area that's a lot like Altadena in Northern California. It's very wooded, older homes. If that burned to the ground, it just wouldn't be the same. Wouldn't be the same neighborhood. I don't know that I'd want to live there. So if that's you, I mean, these are considerations. We had one. We found out very tragically one family, 9 people, grandparents, children, nieces, nephews, grandchildren, had 9 single-family homes in Altadena. All of them were destroyed. So this extended family staying together, just really, really tough. Now, buying a replacement home is typically a better investment since many houses aren't worth what it costs to build them, and it's usually less disruptive. So you may find that you could buy something for less than it costs to build something, right? So do you, right? You have to decide, is that what you want to do? So again, these are market forces happening, but if you do rebuild and you do put money, what's the value of that going to be in the future? So these are things to think about. Let's talk about tax implications after a fire. So Revenue and Taxation Code Section 170, this is the California Revenue and Taxation Code Section 170, allows for property tax relief if a fire destroys your property. So the county where you're located must have adopted an ordinance that allows property tax relief to the owners of damaged or destroyed property. So we've had some fires in Ventura County, some fires in LA County this year. We've had fires in other counties throughout the year. So again, you have to, and that is based on not the county of your residence, it's where the county where the real property is located. And the county assessor will reappraise the property to reflect its damaged condition. Now, when it's rebuilt in a like or similar manner, this is key, the property will retain its prior Prop 13 value for tax purposes. So if you rebuild, you get to keep your Prop 13 taxes. But what if you had a 1,500 square foot house in the Palisades and you rebuild and it's 3,000? You're not going to keep your Prop 13 taxes. There's going to be some reassessment there, at least a partial reassessment. So rebuilding in a like or similar manner, if the left house is destroyed and you rebuild with the right one, that could result in a reassessment. So to qualify for property tax relief, you must file a claim with the county assessor within the time specified in your ordinance or 12 months from the date of damage or destruction, whichever is later. So you have 12 months. So again, there's a time limit on this. And if you just say, I am so devastated, I can't even think straight. If you want property tax relief, you need to get on it. And I would say that would be, if your home has been destroyed, I would rank this pretty high. Okay, you want to get that ball rolling. The loss has to be at least 10,000 in market value, and it's reassessed according to its damaged state. I would argue these properties are close to zero, would be my argument, because there's nothing you can do with them. So I don't know how far down they'll go, but talking to the LA County Assessor is a bit like talking to a brick wall behind like a glacier and another wall. It's really hard to communicate with them. So, they may just take the lot value. So if you had a house that's $3 million and the lot's $1 million and the structure's $2 million, they may say, okay, well, the structure's destroyed, so we'll take that down to $1 million. I would make the argument that it would be less than $1 million because you can't build on it right now. You can't sell it. I mean, there's even some sales restrictions in there. So it's not available property that's not accessible, such as state licensed manufactured homes or household furnishings. So state licensed manufactured homes, you go through the Department of Housing and Community Development for that. So if you had a mobile home, you must contact your county assessor for an application for reassessment of property. This is not automatic. They are not going to they're not going to track you down and email you and say, hey, you can drop your taxes. You got to do this. So after the application is processed by the county assessor's office, a notice of proposed new assessment is sent to you, and you still have to pay your regular tax bill. So if your taxes were $10,000 and now it drops to $3,000, you still got to pay that tax bill. A refund will be made based on the amount of the reduction. So I would have to presume that they would look at your tax bill and there's a land and structure assessment. They might just take off the structure assessment and leave you with the land. That would be my guess, would be an approach. But again, ask them. You could send them an email. It takes them a while to respond. A refund's made based on the amount of the reduction. So you file it and then they approve it months and months and months, maybe a year later, and then you'll get a refund, but you still have to pay the higher taxes. So it's not that you file the form and start paying less taxes immediately. They tell you what your new tax bill is. So you still have to pay your old taxes until your reduction is approved. The refund's prorated from the month in which the disaster occurred to the end of the fiscal year, or completion of new construction, whichever is first. Can my tax base move with me if I buy a replacement property? So we're talking about base year value transfers to a replacement property. So your house burns down and you want to move to another property. So Prop 50, this is from June of 1986, allows the transfer of base year value of real property in the same county. So if the fire's in Los Angeles County and you move to stay within Los Angeles County, you can transfer it. But if you decide to move to Ventura County, Prop 50 doesn't apply. Okay, we'll talk about Prop 19 in a little bit. Your property must be substantially damaged or destroyed by a disaster for which the governor proclaims a state of emergency, which did happen. Must be transferred to a comparable replacement property, and the replacement property must be located within the same county. So that is the Prop 50 relief. Prop 171 passed in 1993. This allows the base year value of a principal residence located in a county that has adopted an ordinance to accept base year value transfers. So you can go to another county. So 1993, they said, gee, well, it's a little restrictive. And you can transfer it to another county as long as that county that you're moving to has adopted the ordinance to accept base year value transfers. Not all have, okay? Prop 19 passed in 2020 allows a transfer of the taxable value of the original primary residence to a replacement primary residence within 2 years. You must be a victim of a wildfire or natural disaster and must be purchased or newly constructed as that person's principal residence within 2 years of the sale. So you have fire damage, a year goes by and you're like, I don't want to rebuild, I'm going to sell this. You then have 2 years to get a replacement property. You can buy the replacement property before. So if you've already bought a replacement property, you're going to be able to transfer your property tax base from your relinquished property. So I would definitely check with your assessor on the ins and outs of that. And if you need some help with that, you can reach out to us. So that brings us to the end of our time together. We do have office locations in Pasadena and Westlake Village, so very close to the Eaton and Palisades fires, as well as Auburn, Sacramento, San Francisco, San Rafael, Walnut Creek, and Oakland Hills. Please subscribe to our YouTube page. You can and also give us a thumbs up and put comments. We love to hear comments. And next up, we have in Roseville, which is in Northern California. For those of you wondering where Roseville is, a business planning workshop I will be hosting February 27th, and this will be in person. So a chance to meet me in person. Yes, I am a human being. I'm not just a face on YouTube. And March 6th, we'll talk about Prop 13 in California, how it benefits us today. We'll cover that on video. And we'll open it up for questions. And just keep watching. If you're watching this on YouTube, the next video will magically roll up right after this one.